I did a documentary, The Black Knight Satellite, Beyond the Signal.
Oh.
And there's this object orbiting Earth that is estimated to be there for 13,000 years. And how we get this number is the NSA analyzed a signal from it. A couple of astrophysicists analyzed the signal, and some ham radio operators back in the 50s also got the same signal, all independent, came up with the same translation, decoding of the signal, that it was saying it was from the Epsilon Boötes constellation. Then they discovered that it was in a polar orbit. It had changed course and went into a polar orbit, something we couldn't do until just recent times. We didn't even know how to get a polar orbit orbiting from pole to pole. In order to create a lot of the megalithic structures that you've seen, like the pyramid complexes and everything else, you need a polar orbit. But this thing has been orbiting in a polar orbit from the 1950s. The object itself is interesting because Epsilon Boötes comes up individually several times. So I looked into Epsilon Boötes. I'm like, well, let me research this place. Found out there's something called a void there. This void is called the Boötes void. It's the largest known void in the universe. It's not even dust in this area, going on for about 250 million light years, or some crazy spanning number like that. And so I saw Michio Kaku, the famous theoretical physicist, talking about it. And he said that in that void, it looks like light's being bent around that area. And he says that we think that it's potentially it could be a cloaked advanced civilization. So I looked into it a little bit deeper and discovered that Boötes is owned by Enlil from the ancient Sumerian tablets. These beings owned planets and moons, and some even owned constellations. And Enlil was the ruler of the earth at that time. And guess what Enlil had in the tablets? He had the all-seeing eye, the eye of Sauron, which has made it into the Lord of the Rings. He had the all-seeing eye. They copied that from the tablets. Wow. The Lord of the Rings copied it from the tablets.
Oh my gosh.
So he can see, now listen to this. He can see population densities on the planet. He can see who had crops, who didn't have crops. He can see weather patterns all over the earth. And you can only do that with a polar orbiting satellite. Because as the earth spins on its axis, the satellite's orbiting this way. And so as the earth is, as the satellite's orbiting this way, it's taking swaths of data.
Right.
And it's scanning topography, it's scanning patterns, it's scanning everything you need, right? Barometric pressures and all that kind of stuff. You can see scanning densities. You can scan for population densities. All that can come from one satellite orbiting the planet in a polar orbit. He had that. He knew what was going on, and unfortunately, he was a pretty evil dude. If humans were getting too outrageous in one area, or overpopulating an area, he would just have them killed. He would this is in the tablets, just kill them. 100,000, 200,000. He would dry their crops out. He would spray stuff on their crops and to dry them out so they can starve to death. All this kind of crazy stuff. This guy was just ruthless. He saw us just as animals. He didn't see us as real sentient beings. But this guy owned Boötes. So I said, wait a minute. So the more I dug into it, I realized that the Black Knight satellite is this object that is still orbiting our planet right now. It's on NASA's server. They call it space junk.
Space junk.
Yeah, they call it space junk. They don't know what it is. It's been there. The STS-88 mission did a flyby and caught a great HD image of this thing. It's about estimated 15 tons.
It's in our orbit.
Oh yeah, it's in our orbit.
So it's not far out. It's not outer space.
No, it's at Lagrange point 4, I believe.
Okay.
And it's orbiting out there, and it's still there. They won't mess with it because it makes no sense to mess with it. You don't know what type of self-defense system or mechanism this thing may have. But the reason why I think it's important, based on what you were telling me about the gentleman, is because I believe that this thing is watching us. I think it's watching us, and I believe that it's using quantum entanglement to transmit everything in real time, what's going on Earth, back to home base at Boötes.
Wow.
And that this could be the grabby civilization that you're talking about that is watching and making sure we don't get too crazy because they don't want us to be a threat. They talked about us becoming a threat in the Sumerian tablets. In the myth of Adapa, they talked about it. They talked about it in the Atrahasis epic. They talked about it in the Epic of Gilgamesh. All these tablets, they talk about us potentially rising up and even superseding them, and making sure that we never found out that we don't need them. This is an ancient tablets, and now finding out that he is the constellation of Boötes is attributed to Enlil, and this thing gives off the signal to Boötes. And even in the NSA document, which is read in my documentary, it all comes together like, wow, what is going on here? In my research into all of this about Enlil, he claimed himself to be omnipotent and omniscient. So that's what made it into the Bible. God's supposed to be omnipotent and omniscient, all knowing and all seeing and everywhere at all times. to me, if you take away the spiritual, magical aspect of that statement and analyze that statement by understanding technology, how can I, Billy Carson, right now today, become omniscient and omniscient? How can I be everywhere all at once and know everything at once? There's an easy way for me to do that today. Number one, I got a smartphone. This smartphone can give me everything, tell me almost everything I need to know, right? And then the second thing is the smartphone is connected to the internet, which is connected to satellites. And those satellites I can log into satellites all over the world, and I can see what's going on anywhere on the planet right now. I can tap into camera systems, public access cameras right now from my phone. My car, I drive a Mercedes Benz. I have a Mercedes S-Class. I always keep an S-Class since 2002, one of the most incredible cars for everyday driving because they're so safe. Actually, there's an app in the car, built into the car, that will let me see, you know what? Let me see what traffic looks like on A1A before I go that way. I can actually physically see the cameras. I can turn them on. I can see live camera action in my car, cars going back and forth on the highway, and see which highways are crowded, which highways aren't crowded from my car. Give me that omnipotent, omniscient ability. Between that and my smartphone, I now can see and know everything and be everywhere at all times. So you see, when you take the spiritual, magical sky daddy wizard with a magic wand out of the picture and analyze it from a technological standpoint, you begin to realize that we're talking about a guy who had technology. This is how he knew about this. The Sumerian tablets say he had something called the Tablets of Destiny. And these Tablets of Destiny would have communication capability. They would have capability of seeing images on the screen that let him see things happening on the planet. He can even transmit information back to his home world through these Tablets of Destiny. And he had control of some type of weapon through these Tablets of Destiny, which is why people tried to steal them. And they actually got stolen a few times. And it was said whoever had control of the Tablets of Destiny had literally control of everything in this galaxy. Pretty interesting. And so he had the Tablets of Destiny as well. These crystal tablets that can display all this information. What kind of tablet can display information today that looks like a crystal tablet? Well, it could be your iPad. It can be your cell phone, right? These devices that we have right now, very similar. And so on my device, I was in here earlier, it was getting hot in this room, and we finally figured out which controller, which app it was to control the air conditioner in the room. We tried for the whole time we were on the podcast. Elizabeth was sweltering in heat because there's so many lights in here. That's my new studio. I'm sitting in my brand new studio, and we got all these lights and stuff, right, to get the right lighting and so forth. And so it was hot, but we couldn't figure out the correct app to use. I was on my crystal tablet trying to activate a device that would cool us off. Now, to a less technologically advanced person that would be in this room feeling that heat, and then all of a sudden they see me going to this crystal tablet, and then the room gets cooler, to them it's magic. To them it's absolute magic. To me, it's just an app and some technology, right? This is basic stuff. I can control my thermostat from my phone. But to a person who has never seen a crystal tablet, to a person that's never seen an central air conditioning unit and the vents that bring the air in, to them, I accessed this magical realm and I manifested cool air in the room because I'm a god. And so this is what religion is. Religion is nothing but cargo cults. That's all religion is. I don't care what religion it is, it's a cargo cult. Advanced beings were witnessed doing things that people couldn't understand, and they passed it down from generation to generation. 2-3 generations later, it's nothing but a deity now. And this deity has powers that are going to bless my life. That's what it's all about.